Welcome to the CXPod, where we aim to expand people's perception of customer experience management. We know that customer experience goes hand in hand with employee experience, and we believe that a broader and more holistic view might even replace terms like CX and EX with people experience or human experience.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the CXPod. Hello Joanna.
Hello Merete.
Hello Jannecke.
Hi.
Hi Jannecke.
Hi. Good to be here.
I start with interrupting. Can you hear that? Every time. So I was gonna say, and I'll just keep interrupting. Jannecke, how would you say your name in English?
Well, that's always a challenge, but Jannecke is usually what's used.
Jannecke.
Yeah.
Is it Dutch or is it just creative parents from Norway, or what's the story behind the name? Because it's not that usual.
I'm daughter number 3, so I guess they kind of ran out of girl's name. I don't know.
It's a spelling error that they just didn't fix.
I've been told there was a children's program in Holland that was called Jan and Jannecke. So apparently there's some connection. I don't know. Yeah.
It sounds a little Dutch.
I'm not Dutch, but I'll do my best.
Yeah, because this is interesting.
But you're Norwegian.
I am Norwegian. Yes, I am for sure. 100%.
And that's the thing. We are three Norwegian-speaking people here today, all women, and still we're going to do this in English, which is also a little awkward. But then again, hey, we do need a challenge every now and then. So I'm here with my American-ish accent. Joanna, you are English, so let's find out eventually what accent Jannecke has. The most warm-heartedly welcome to the CXPod. You've been here before?
Yes, I have. Lucky me. Lucky me. Yes.
Yeah.
It's the second time. I was like, wow.
Yes, and now we're on video, so everyone can see you now. Everyone can, because I don't know, it's something about when you watch people's face when they talk about their passion, something magical happens. So we're going to try to catch that today as well. And you're ready for a 13-question challenge?
I am. Yeah, I love the format. Let's see what we can do.
All right. So should we just hit it then with the first question?
Yep. Shall I go? First question out, Jannecke, is can you tell us a little bit about you? Who is Jannecke Drangert-Hveding? Did I say that correct?
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it. It's not the most international name, I guess. That was never. It's like, yeah, it was never thought about. These very modern couples, when we marry, we stick our surnames together and make a new one, which is a sort of new tradition. So that's why I'm called Drangert-Hveding. But yeah, so who's Jannecke? So I'm Norwegian. I'm actually like a small town girl from the west coast of Norway, but actually quite an entrepreneurial upbringing. Come to think of it, and I've always then been interested in the link between, customer and business. I actually had my first venture during secondary school, so I've always enjoyed that part of life. But privately, I'm a proud mom of 2 driven, independent girls ready to conquer the world, and I'm partner wife of Pili. As mentioned, professionally, I'm a CEO of a boutique consultancy, so to speak, called Customer C. I'm a board member in different organizations, and also, as you both know, I'm quite active in the CX community locally and internationally. And I also have it's called Customer Community, a network of CX leaders or customer-centric leaders here in Norway. So I guess that's me.
Yeah. Very good. And as we like to refer to you as our very own queen of CX in Norway, especially, and even internationally. But I think, and I'm not saying this to sort of, what do you say, when you scratch someone's back or whatever it is in English or in Norwegian, it's called smiske. But I do think, you were one of the first ever in Norway to start your own, a pure CX company, and you've been in the game for so long. You've also had different other positions that sort of enables you to understand business, not just from the customer perspective, but also from, this is just my interpretation of who you are, but so to be able to combine and understand why some business leaders sometimes don't understand and they cannot seem to grasp what customer experience is about, and then you're sort of helping them do that because you've actually been on different on different sites and in different roles, but always with the customer centric mindset. And that is what the C in customer C stands for, right? Customer centric, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm playing around with the C. It can mean many different things. I also use that for the customer community, so C for community. But yeah. So it's but definitely, I mean, the sort of reason why I started Customer C is all about helping leaders, mostly in Norway, supporting and cheering leaders in their work to become more customer centric. So yeah, that's definitely what I believe in. That said, I think it's a great trait for most, customer-oriented leaders to be quite humble. And I'm definitely, conscious myself that, there's so much more to learn and so much more to do in this area. So, I appreciate you mentioning me as someone who's been working in this field for a long time, but I'm still there and I'm still learning and I'm still, trying to find my way, as most, I think, customer-centric leaders are.
Yeah, I think that's really great that you say, because it's evolving all the time, and it is a challenging role, the role that you have, Jannecke. Especially when people look up to you and learn from you. It's a challenge that we have to continually make sure that we know what's relevant in the market, what people are struggling with, and I know that you are very active in doing so, because we also work together in the network.
Yeah, but I think it's important. I mean, we don't have all the answers, and I think a lot of things are changing. And like in the customer community, we have leaders that have been working also in this field for 20 years, and we're talking about this being a marathon. This is not something you sort of just put up on the board and decide and run. This is really a lot of intense change work, but it's very rewarding, and I definitely am the right sort of challenge. So I really enjoy it.
Great. So, I mean, we've covered a little bit about it, but I'm still going to ask the question just to, if there's anything else, which there probably is, your field of expertise, in addition to being customer centric and all that, but,
Well, actually, yeah, I think because you mentioned me, having worked within CX, but actually when we started, we didn't call it CX, agency in that sense. We called it, being business strategist or helping and supporting organizations in their strategic work. And then, of course, we did support them in the outside-in approach in their business development and innovation and on all different levels. But we didn't, especially I think in the Nordics, we didn't talk so much about customer experience as a strategic field or as a toolbox even in the beginning. But it was definitely an outside-in approach. I mean, you did a lot of work based on design thinking and all that. So it's I see myself as a strategic advisor, as a business developer, and now I'm like a cheerleader for all the great value champions out there.
Awesome.
Amazing. And this brings us also to a really great question that we've had quite a few sort of different variants of answering. And it's like this, it's probably the most basic question we have within customer experience. And it's, how would you define customer experience in your own words, Jannecke?
Well, I think the customer experience, and this is something I think we're much more conscious about now than before. I think it's all about perception that the customer has about an organization throughout the touch points, all the interactions and technology for that sake. So it's all about the customer's perception of an organization throughout all these elements of the lifetime and the journey. And I think that's the core element of what customer experience is. So it's subjective, and I think that's something that we become much more conscious about. And I think a lot of vendors are still saying, we are responsible for the customer experience, but actually it's the customer in the end that decides what the customer experience is perceived as. So I think that's at least a really important message that we need to get across. There's so many people saying, if you just buy my screens, or if you just buy this and that, then, you've got the customer experience under control. Nope, you do not. And I think that's a very important message.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how many different ways this question has been answered in the podcast and in general as well, because, I think we can agree somewhat that maybe the definition of customer experience is all the touch points that your customer have to sort of experience with you across, or your brand and across the whole journey. But that's a very simplified definition of what it is. And I think when we're talking about who's responsible about it, which we're going to come back to later, there's a variety of answers, and I don't think any one of them is wrong or right, maybe, because it's and that's what makes it so interesting, but also so difficult. We're going to move on. So this is a two-sided questions. It's about who is responsible for customer experience in your company. So you can choose if you want to answer on behalf of you and your company, or in general, who should be responsible for the customer experience.
Well, I think it's quite easy in the sort of network-based company that I run, who's responsible, and I think everyone involved, of course, are responsible. And that's the same answer I would give to any organizations, in that, yes, it's a leadership responsibility to enable everyone to contribute and understand how they can contribute. But in the end of the day, it's everyone's responsibility to actually do contribute when you get there. So, but it's, I think it's for sure our leadership responsibility. That's why I address boards and I address, executive teams, because I feel that really you need to start there and get everyone on board if you want to succeed. Then you can find ways of operationalizing it, based on your specific organization. But yeah, I think it's a leadership responsibility.
And what is capturing your attention most today when it comes to customer centricity or customer centric business world?
Well, maybe it's what I've been discussing with a lot of organizations recently is based on the survey that we did in the Nordic market and in Norway in specific, about how immature we actually are still in the work of customer centricity. We still have a lot to do. It's become more complex than ever before, which means it's more challenging, especially for big organizations. But the fact that I think the respondents said, I think we ended up with 14% with a high maturity on customer centricity, which is not so. It's quite depressive for someone that's been working in the field for say 20 years. So I think it's interesting that there's huge potential for those that want to compete and want to see the value in this field. But yeah, there's a lot of work to do. Yeah. So I guess that's what I've at least been spending a lot of time and attention on recently. I think it's it's a huge potential and upside for those that go that way and take it to the next level. But yeah. I was a bit disappointed with the results that we came up with.
Yeah, I can understand that. Something that I'm wondering, Jannecke, is how do companies, have you had any sort of reactions from business leaders when you communicate that this is like the score, that we're actually still quite immature. Do you have like any experience that you meet like resistance or acceptance for that is the case?
I don't think I haven't had any sort of resistance at all. Actually, I think also the findings were that executive leadership actually score themselves higher than practitioners in their own organizations, and even that didn't really get any resistance. They was like, that's probably how it is. I think it's the key question is, are we good enough in demonstrating the business value of the customer centric work? And I think that's a challenge that comes back to us, that we need to help these, the sponsors or the responsible to understand and have a good discussion of the business value that this can create. And if we cannot do that and get attention on that, it's kind of hard to move the needle, I think. Yeah. So I guess it's up to us to continue that sort of messaging.
It's sort of both depressive and optimistic, or at least positive for us working with this and wanting to create that impact. At least we're not going to run out of jobs anytime shortly. But
but of course, but at the same time, we really want to make a difference and create value. I think as in the Nordic market, the same as I think globally everywhere now, everyone is talking about AI and Gen AI, and that gets a lot of buzz and attention. And I think I've had discussions with some executive leaders. How can we actually prioritize doing this sort of work when we actually need to make sure we are addressing the sort of acute needs related to Gen AI, and I'm trying then to link and see that actually it's quite interrelated, and we need to focus on the customer value and the business value, and when there's a linkage and there's a value, then that should sort of give the priority that you need. So we need to keep that message going.
And this is a perfect sort of segue to the next question, which is, what is the most significant challenge companies face today when serving customers well? Is it, AI taking on everything, or, becoming this big boss? Are we being blended by AI and forgetting that, we had a lot of good things going as well? How would you approach that?
Well, I think the sort of most fundamental challenge we have in serving customers is to eliminate complexity and make use of all these opportunities and create value for the customers. And I think that's sort of the core, challenge that we need to address. And if that is in using, new technology like general AI in some instances, then fine. But I think it's more really understanding the customers and the customer needs and the customer experience, and out of that, really make a difference, prioritize in a way you can actually make a difference. And I think that's sort of, reducing complexity, understanding where you can, get quick wins and prioritize initiatives that really makes a difference for your customers is sort of, I think, a challenge. And yes, back to your question, I think there's a lot of buzz around Gen AI, and we don't talk about the value it's going to be created. Talk more about the sort of, the language models and what it actually is. But let's talk value, and as long as we talk value and how we can use it for the business, and that's fine. And it's all interlinked, I think.
But then there's also this, and this is really frustrating to me, and I don't even know where to start when I'm going to say this, but because I feel like everything is becoming so polarized. It's on one hand we're talking AI and language models and automation, but done intelligently. And then just lately today, I had a crap digital experience with a bank, right? Because they don't even understand that the chatbot isn't going to be able to help. Like, I know that the chatbot isn't going to be able to help me with this, so please just let me talk to a human being. And I sort of, and now they added not just the one step where you can ask for a human being and they give you a human being. Now they're like, I know you want to talk to a person, but just try me out. I might be able to help you better than you think. And I'm like, no, I don't want. So why are we trying to move the needle into the future when we are still struggling with issues we've had, for the past 10, 15 years?
Yeah.
Right. And it's why can't we just go back to the basics and just fix, like you're talking about creating value. I don't even need value. I just need it to work.
But that is value if you get your job done and you don't have to spend time on it. And that in itself, I guess, is valuable. But there's a lot of,
I don't need added value, more added value. I just, I need
that's
fix the
true.
basics.
You just need to solve your issue, and that should be the priority.
Reschedule a meeting.
And the worst part is, Marietta, everyone says it's going to get worse before it gets better, because now we're so eager to try out new things that we are pushing it even a bit further.
And we're going to see some move in this direction and just fail. And then some are going to go in this direction and they're going to actually make it. And then these people are going to be the leaders and then the rest. So, I mean, it's always going to be like that. But I'm just surprised. And I think it was Claire Muscat who said this, that, the amount of bad CX that is out there and how we tried to digitalize, our customer journeys that we had before COVID. And all of a sudden we had to sort of, digitalize everything. And we took the journey we had and we just sort of shoved it into a digital format without thinking, how can we create value or at least, remove friction or whatever. So, and that tells me that we have a lot of people maybe working on user experience or maybe, working with technology, but we're lacking that overlying holistic perspective on it being customer and human centric.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I think you're right. That we are sometimes getting too eager to solve specifics and lose the sort of overall perspective. But at the same time, if I may challenge you a bit back, I've worked a lot with, getting, self-service automation kind of solutions to work. And sometimes that's, solving your issue smarter and better than a human being. And I think we'll have much more that sort of UX design and service design going forward. And we're going to love it. But on the way there, there's going to be some trials and failures. So,
and because the level is so unequal, right? Some are doing really good and some are doing so bad. So you keep having your expectations effed up because, but I did this in that bank and they managed to, and then why can't these guys? Because it seems like some are better to adapt to these new things than others, and
And actually, sort of coming back to what you started with, Jannecke, answering the question of what is the significant challenge, complexity. Perhaps this is the total challenge around this whole area, because we're trying to remove complexity, perhaps first for the business, which is why we try to go more digital. And we are, of course, also trying to reduce complexity for the customer, but there's this like middle stage where there's going to be complexity because we're making change, and perhaps that is like the area that needs some kind of extra focus. How do we actually go from one state to the other state and manage complexity through all states while keeping focus on value creation for the business and the customer?
But I truly believe that, always making sure you take the customer's perspective or the user perspective into account will also increase the business value. And I do believe that a lot of examples like the one you had, Marietta, is that you do not take into account sufficiently, the user's experience on the way. So, and in reducing the complexity and becoming also, learning faster, I think the business agility perspective here is super important. I think those organizations that are now, increase their sort of pace in learning, while, improving the experience and changing and adapting to new, more digital and new, more innovative services overall, are going to be the winners. But definitely the customer and user perspective is crucial in this.
And that's a great step into our next question, because the next question is from your from your perspective, Jannecke. What are the key attributes of a customer-centric company?
So what we actually did when starting Customer C, we did research, qualitative research, talking to key players in the Norwegian market, and identified 5 key attributes. But I want to stress the first crucial attribute, and that is actually establishing common mental models in an organization as to what their customer means for the business. Why are we actually here, and how do we create value? And I was quite surprised actually how significant that an organization had actually taken that discussion, define what customer or user is, and how we create value, and how the customer experience influences the value creation. And those organizations that actually establish these mental models, and it doesn't have to be our definition of customer centricity or customer experience, but it has to be common for that organization. And it was so clear that you could notice in all the other answers and all the other attributes that those that had taken that discussion and really established a common understanding on what we were talking about was crucial. I think that's actually one of the key attributes for customer-centric companies. That you've
and
taken
I think
that
we
job.
agree, because we're nodding. Sitting.
But back to what we started off when you asked me, how do I define customer experience? And I think my definition is quite close to the CXPod and association, where all the practitioners have contributed to the definition. But nevertheless, what we define as the customer experience isn't as important as the fact that they've had a discussion in an organization and established sort of the playbook, or established what we mean about it. And of course, it should be linked then to the strategy and the vision and everything. If that would be even better. But the starting point is have the discussion, agree what it means, agree how you create value. If you have that, you've come far. That's my experience. So I think that's a key attribute. Yeah,
I really love that's like the real key point that you pulled out there, Jannecke. I've run a project myself before where we started, when we was defining the vision, started with the employees of like, who do you want to be for your customer. And I think it was one of my first projects, and it was such a learning curve for me as well, to see how important it was to start internally with actually, because that's how you sort of get what we call the buy-in, and it's part of forming this mental model, as you mentioned.
But if you can add a thing, I just noticed on your sort of slogan for the CXPod, you talk about the human experience and the people experience, and I do. I mean, I solemnly, I really believe that that's super important. But I'm also scared that if you're introducing new concepts all the time, we're confusing any organization or any executive team. Now it's called this and now you call that. I remember, I think it was McKinsey, one of the big strategic consultancy, they insisted on not calling anything customer experience but having their own concepts, and it doesn't work that way. We just need to just try to get a common language out there, and try to get make sure we speak the same language, so to speak. So I think that's important.
It's such a valid point, and we're guilty of doing exactly that, because I think from our perspective, it's about having. I think sometimes talking about human experience can help people understand what customer experience is about. But we should be careful not to sort of shift it around and say that this is the new and CX is the old. And
exactly.
But I just also wanted to pick your brain a little bit on, when we're talking about. So it slipped my mind. It slipped my tongue, so I'll get back to it probably.
Can I add a point then? Because this is now you see, this is something that's really important to me. And I think what I've seen also is that in some organizations, they say, we need to be customer centric. So if for support function, HR or communication, we define who is our customer, and then we out of that sort of develop our customer centricity. And I think that's a big mistake, because I think every part of the organization legal even, they should relate their contribution to the value creation of the company, and then the core customers, or end consumers, or business customers or whatever. But everyone should relate to the end user, so to speak. And I think that's a really, really important point. And I think some organizations miss that, and then they start of having, competing customers, so to speak, instead of getting everyone aligned and trying to create the same value. Does that make sense?
Removing
complexity.
And
it's such a valid point, because, and it's so important, because I think for the CFO, we keep telling them that you are also responsible for the customer. And I think in a way it's correct, but that's not the way you put it to the CFO. You need to put it to the CFO. You are also in charge of the income, and the income just happens to be coming from the customer. So it's all about how you sort of, because if you come and they're going to think this, they're going to look at this as some fluffy, human or customers, and now we're just going to be kind and give away all of our money. That's what they're hearing when we say we need to invest in our customers. But we need to make them see the customers as the business opportunity that they actually are, because that's they're paying the bills that are giving us money. It's as simple as that. But I think we fail. So I love that you mentioned that. And I just remember what I was going to say. And I want your take on this. Because sometimes I'm so, frustrated by companies stating time and over again that, we are the most customer-centric company. We put our customers first, and then they just don't. So I was wondering, and this isn't really part of the question challenge, but I was wondering, is it okay to just say, you know what, we're going to go with mediocre customer experience for now? Like, we have so many things to work on. We're not going to be excellent at this. We have some ideas, we have some, but for now, this is what we were able to sort of invest in our customers. Is that
Good
okay?
Question.
Well, two things. Yes, I think it's okay, because you're not, it's better to give a promise that you're actually going to deliver on than just doing the slogans that no one believes anyway. And that's also when now that we know how important it is to get everyone on board, employees on board, then if they don't believe on the message that you're coming on customer centricity, then you can forget it, right? So yes, I think both. It's much it's much better, actually, and I can say that from personal experience. I was an executive leader in health tech now recently, and some of the things we did was not in place. It was not good enough, and it's much better then to be honest about that and say you're working on it and you have ambitions, but you will not be able to deliver everything that all the clients and the hospitals wanted at that point. And I think that's it's much better to be honest. And then if you can at least deliver, but maybe even over deliver on that, perfect. But don't do the slogans that no one believes.
Yeah, it makes me so happy to hear you saying that.
Yeah. I hope I've always been saying that, because I think and that's what also I think is a good trait for again most customer centric companies. They are humble. They know they can improve. They know there's always things that we can do better. And, it's never perfect. So I think the sort of we are the best in the world is, of course, is not very Scandinavian, because we don't have that in our culture to talk in so capital letters. But even so, I don't know. It's better to be honest and deliver on it.
Yeah. Great. We're going to change topics a little bit, and we're going to throw you into the world of Voice of the Customer programs. What is your take on those?
So my take is that I think for your international listeners, it's probably valid to mention that in Scandinavia, maybe, or in the Nordics, especially maybe Norway and Finland, a service design, so all qualitative sort of ethnographical research and design thinking has been really, really strong. So we've been doing lots of great stuff in sort of getting the voice of the customer in the sort of qualitative research up and running. And of course, that has also been quite action oriented. But even here we have, with the voice of customer, we still have the problem that there's a lot of service going on and not so much, insight, and even less action. So of course there's a lot to do. That said, I think the the span now of organizations from the most, let's say, basic sort of approaches to voice of customer to the most advanced, I think the span is really, really increasing. The development we see in customer journey management, where they actually, build in all qualitative and quantitative insight, both behavioral, both experience, behavior, and outcome, and really sort of have business intelligence really, going throughout the organizations for the really best players. The span is huge, and I think we haven't seen the start of it. And I think some players really need to step up their game in this sense. And this is also where we see a lot of new features and possibilities made available by new technology like Gen AI, etc. Yeah. So it's for those able to create value out of this. Again, I think the span will even be greater going forward. So I think again, more action, more insight, and this is also an area where we're going to have a huge transformation going forward for many companies. Think about being big currently is still sort of where all the complexity comes at, and you're not able to treat a customer as one. You have all these sort of interaction points and journeys that do not match and do not see you as a one individual customer or user. You can solve that going forward. Yeah. You manage to get everything. So you can actually use voice of customer on an operational, tactical, and strategic level. So I'm really, I'm really passionate about this area, because I think I've seen some of the possibilities, and I see what some players now are capable of doing. And I'm saying, just you wait. Do you see that out there? So
and so because these AIs, as I refer to them as AIs. There's so much, but there's so much because they're rational, right? They're in the way that they don't let emotions get in their way, so they will find the shortest way to the best solution. And I think some of the ways that we're going to see the AI help us transform insight into actionable opportunities. I mean, only with open-end comment analysis, sentiment analysis, categorization. And then even correlating the score from the NPS question to the sentiment of the comment, and then sort of understanding that these are the drivers that drives the NPS and up and down. This has been in the market for quite a long time already, and these algorithms are just learning day by day, second by second. So I also going to think we're going to see so many good suggestions and so many new business ideas probably coming from the machines interpreting all this data.
Absolutely, but that said, Gen AI should be treated as a tool, and we need to master the tool. There's so much hallucination going out there. There's so much so examples out there now of chatbots promising things to customers because they've been generating, as they are they are tools generating content, and people are surprised. So of course we need to master the tools so that we create the value and actually extract what we need out of them.
And that's also a valid point. You don't have to necessarily understand everything about AI, but you do have to understand how to use it and how not to use it as well.
Absolutely. Just like one final point with a question regarding the voice of the customer sort of programs. What do you think is perhaps the hurdle? What is stopping businesses from actually investing and actually integrating, for example, a voice of the customer program into their company?
Well, I think some of them are actually on the way. Just to say that I've seen some discussions about the sort of the transformation being the problem. I don't think it's a problem, but it's just a mean. But we need to an end to actually solve these things better, and I think we can solve them better soon. But sorry, I forgot your question again.
Yeah, it's
What's
like what is
hurdle?
like the challenge? What's stopping more companies from actually incorporating using a voice of the customer software?
But it's not only the software, it's the behavioral change that you need, right? And I think one of the things, at least we've seen in the Scandinavian countries, is that they've hired a lot of people that are specializing in different fields, but they haven't seen the need to coordinating the KPIs, coordinating the strategies, aligning everyone to go in the same direction. It will come, but it does take time. But not for now. At least I've seen a lot of specialized, departments within an organization. You need to get it up on the executive level, or at least on the level so that you align the KPIs and the strategies and the OKRs and everything into one. But I think governance is becoming a topic in a lot of teams now, to see how we can actually align these different elements. So we give it some time and we'll get there. I don't, we need this transformation, and we need to
absolutely
to get the different parts of the organization to play in the same orchestra, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
and I agree. It's such an enabler for making the right decisions. And I also have this feeling that many think that it's more complicated to implement than it actually is. But
I saw this presentation on business agility recently, and the CEO started talking more about it. Was all about getting the members of the executive teams to align and actually commit to the same targets. That was sort of the core elements of really getting the different parts to work together. And that may be it. We need to align.
I even think we covered one of our questions with this discussion, because we sort of just ended up taking the whole, what technology has done and will do.
Yeah.
So I want to add a question to that as well, though, because we're sort of trekking off with, we're going to be ending up with 20 questions today. But because what I was going to say, and I'm sorry if I keep interrupting you guys. It seems I have a little bit of a delay, so every time I start talking. So if you feel that I'm being very rude, and not at least all the ones listening.
We still love you.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are used to it anyway. So what I was going to say was, at least with the whole development that we're seeing right now within technology and everything, the last thing you should do is stick your head in the sand and sort of just go like, I can't deal with this, because we have to understand that, it's come to stay, and it has. But is it legit though to sort of be a business leader and say, I'm struggling to keep track on everything now, and like, how are we going to approach this? And because there are so many things going on, and there are so many movements, and then in between it all, these people are trying to sell you something, because these people are trying to sell this technology to you. So how can we navigate in that and sort of maintain our customer-centric approach? How do we ensure that the technology we start using is going to enable us and make us more professional and create better experiences, and not end up with that stupid chatbot that keeps repeating that, if you ask me the question once again, maybe I'll be able to help you.
Oh, but I think that's a super interesting topic that you're raising, Merete, because I think it's super. And I've been a top executive or in a team, top executive team as well, and I'm really humble in the way that of the complexity that is on the agenda every day, and what you especially if you're still in an organization that you haven't been able to, enable the organization with greater autonomy to contribute to the full. And in this context, especially with all this sort of pushy vendors promising, and I must say, I've sometimes, because I've been on both sides of the tables, and I've sometimes seen some propositions on the table, and I've said, did I ever promise that sort of thing? Because it's not, it's not serious. It's not possible to deliver on what you're actually, presenting. It needs to be more realistic and more pragmatic. And I think in that context, I think it's important that you as a leader have, allow yourself to say, hey, I'm not sure we know. Can we find a way of testing? Can we find a way of, experimenting instead? Can we avoid taking a huge risk but still learn? Because it's difficult, especially in that transition before you really enable the organization to have the overview that you need. So
good point. And I think the serious actors would, like the serious vendors that they're out there, they would appreciate that. They would understand that. They would have empathy with you as a business leader in the situation, and actually give room to do, as you said now, maybe test or trial, or start with something very simple and be guided basically.
But it does also change the sourcing strategy of a lot of companies currently, right? Because they do not want to, have a sort of huge chunks of the value creation of your companies, delivered by a vendor. Some have huge, partnerships and succeed in it. But I see that a lot of people build more of the knowledge and more of the deliverable capabilities in-house, and I appreciate that, due again to the sort of domain complexity and understanding needed.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a question for a whole new episode, I suppose. And but I think it's important to raise the question, and also to be humble about maybe not understanding everything, but also as a vendor, to be humble that, we are creating, or AI is creating, a whole new sort of profession right now. And if you compare it to being a doctor or being a lawyer, for instance, which were the two first to come to my mind, when dealing with clients in such a position as, if you're a doctor or lawyer, you have to take into consideration the vulnerability that your client or customer or patient is feeling, because they know nothing about what you are an expert in. And so for us to sort of, and especially, so this is probably a holler out to everyone vending or selling AI at the moment, or that technology, and trying to convince, just beware that, it's vulnerable, and it can affect us in so many ways. So we need to be careful, and have integrity. And I think that's what's scaring me the most about this. And not even the technology, but how fast it's moving. I think it
is, and you can never, even if you have a partner, you as a a leader, you can never sort of outsource the responsibility. You are still in charge. You are still responsible. And I think some of the vendors and advisors even do not have enough respect for that fact, that the sort of responsibility is there. We need to, as board members and as leaders, we need to embrace that responsibility and make sure we have enough competence and enough at least ask the right questions, right? But I think on the other side, you need to be humble that responsibility is still there.
Yeah, good conclusion.
Next question. We're getting through our questions slowly but surely. Good. And it's because the conversation's been so great. We can have great reflections. But this one is very specific on employee experience. So it's more about what role does employee experience and company culture play in delivering top tier customer experience.
Well, I think it's crucial for most organizations, not only those that have a huge frontline or staff interacting with customers like you have in hospitality, travel, retail even. I think it's important for all type of organizations. But that said, I think it's sometimes easy to talk too much about the culture in itself, because you can't decide on the culture. This is something you need to, it needs to be owned by leadership. It needs to be parts of the organization, and it needs to evolve organically, so to speak, because you can't sort of design it and just decide on it. So I think trying to understand the core elements of how you get there is crucial. What I also, if I may, also in the customer community, we've been talking a lot about how we can improve that interlink between CX and EX, and really get some showcases and learnings from the best players out there, and I'm still struggling to find sort of the really best cases of who's succeeded in doing that. It's easy to take some unreasonable hospitality kind of examples, but also from other industries. It'd be great to I think there'll be a lot of development the coming years, and it'll be great if you manage to this also in this podcast to get someone on board that can tell more about who's really has some great insights and learnings in this field, because I think it's super important.
Yeah, and it is. It's sort of like one of those. I don't know if I'm going to call it an illusion, but I'm convinced. Even if I've also yet to see hard facts, proving. I mean, the closest I think we got was with Forsta doing some research on this, and they could see that training employees would obviously give better experiences, and the customers were happier, and the employees were happier as well. But then again, there's a delay as well, right? And we don't understand which comes first. Is it the customer making the employee happy, or is it the employee making the customer happy? But we can agree that if everyone's happy, then everything is good. So obviously that's our target or goal, but somehow it's hard to find, is it a correlation, or is it just, by coincidence?
But it's also by design. I think we have some. I mean, I have some examples, for instance, from hospitality, where you really enable the receptionist in a hotel, for instance, to really be available for the guests, because you have sort of not only given insight and training, but you've also made tools and support around it available, so that they actually can be present, make a difference here and now. And that's by design. We have the same where I came from last in health tech. How you can actually use all sort of insights and surveys on the experience and diagnostic outcome and make that information available for the doctors or nurses before the patient comes. It means that they have, or they are already prepared and ready to meet the patient and have a better starting point. And that's core, core value of what the doctor is supposed to be. It's supposed to give the right sort of advice to the patient, and also be present for the questions and the dialogue that they actually need. So this is by design. This is not only by coincidence, and we'll see a huge development in this area going forward.
So I have a stone in our little glass shed here now. I don't think it's a stone, but I have maybe a controversial question. So. And this was it struck my mind because we were at this development conversation at school with the kids and talking to the teacher. And then at some point she says, in a very sort of dramatic way, she goes, "So my job is to teach." And then, because we were talking about, some kids, being big-mouthed and so on and so on. So this just made me think that where does the line go, when it comes to expecting what kind of professions should be left to do what they're like? A surgeon, should he or she do surgery, and then somebody else needs to take care of the patient journey or experience? And even in the school, the teacher, should the teacher be sort of responsible for the parent experience, or should that be the school's administration's job? And I mean, obviously everyone is in one way or another impacting the experience, but where do we draw that line? How much can we expect? Because human beings are different, and we tend to see, and I see you're going to get the word anytime soon now, but we see that some people who are really good at complex stuff, they're not good with people. So is it right of us to expect for them to also take that responsibility, or should they be surgeons and whatever they are, and then somebody else can be the human people, or I don't know the answer myself, but
no, and there's so many facets to what you're actually asking, Merete. So there's no easy answer to that one. But what we do know is, for instance, when the patient experience, where I've been at least somewhat involved, there's so much knowledge about what's supposed to happen, how this, how the flow of or the journey that the patient needs to go through is going to be. And there's so much information available. So why don't we use that? Why don't we make it as easy for both the medical staff, but also for the patient throughout the patient journey. And I think the same is for, new kids starting in school. There's so much knowledge about what typically happens, what we need to prepare parents for, what we need to, help, teachers get aligned. And why don't we use all this knowledge and input? And typically, as you all know, customer journey, we have insights. So what can we do earlier in the journey to improve the experience and improve the outcome? It's the same logic, but of course, again, there's a lot of facets to all these domains. So I'm very humble about that. But this, and again, there's so much you can do with technology to enable design. And make this a totally different experience than it usually is. And then, of course, you have the division of labor discussion. I'm not even going into that one. We know at least we know at least there's research now saying that if, we need to resolve in healthcare, for instance, we need to resolve these, expectations of healthcare going forward in totally new manners. So of course we need to use technology and redesign our processes, etc., to get there. And it needs to be a definitely digital transformation in there as well.
Yeah, and I think that's where using technology is, that's where we should use the technology. Maybe we shouldn't try so hard replacing humans with technology, but instead using technology to enable the humans that we already have. So,
but again, like examples from health tech, we started with the point where the doctors needed to log into 8 different computers and systems in order to get the information they needed. There's a lot of things we can simplify and align and improve. So
So you've done a lot of things, and you have a lot of experience, and you've had a lot of different roles. Have you seen any game changers where CX sort of crucially helped or helped them succeed, or where they used that as the factor to succeed with their business or their product or service role?
I guess I have several, and I think some of the examples that I just mentioned in health tech are that sort of game changer potentially. But I want to make it very sort of concrete and particular in that, like for instance, one of my clients working in is actually a public company doing pensions, so insurance and pensions. And I think that the sort of game changer was in that the whole customer or user-centric approach changed the whole logic for the organizations, so far as to, for instance, measuring the quality of the deliverables of the pension. Being from before being like you needed to from when the retiree had given all the papers needed to actually go through the paper process to get the pension set and money on account. And they said from every paper is in, he said 3 months is sort of a high quality deliverable, right? And that's the starting point. And the end point was saying, well, shouldn't it be so that 1 month, the first month after they retire or go on sick leave, shouldn't they get the money on their account? And I think that's a sort of a game changer mentally and also process and quality wise and strategic. And they hold the whole whole organization has actually moved now to being super oriented around the user experience and the customer's sort of lifestyle really, and how they can perceive the value of the pension fund.
Yeah, and also challenging that status quo, right? That, it was basically accepted that it took this long. Like nobody even, probably somebody were frustrated about it, but, the majority of people, they just accepted that this is probably the time it takes. And to have that sort of capacity in your head to think, no, we should actually, challenging something that isn't even challenged, right?
Yeah.
That's
so true. Yeah.
That's customer centricity to me.
It's like our customer has a job to be done. They need to pay their bills.
And that's going. Sorry, John. And that's going from inside out to outside in completely, right?
Yeah.
So and we have lots of that sort of examples, but I love this one because it's a state, public organization, and you wouldn't expect that sort of the turnaround that they've done, but they have, and it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, and there's an awful lot going on within the state and governmental and
public
local
services
in improving public services, improving customer experience, and I think that's I think it's a great inspiration actually to also the private businesses that the public services are taking this really seriously, and they're drastically improving their deliverables to I was going to say customers, but they are. Yeah, I guess they are customers.
Yeah, the users, or the members of society.
Citizens, thank you.
Citizens, But I think for your international listeners, I think it's worth noticing what we've actually managed to accomplish. The fact that when in several countries, but also in Norway now, tax reporting, you can actually
easy.
You can actually just see it and just approve it, because all information is pre-populated, so you don't need to do anything. If you just need to make sure that it's right, and then it's done. And the fact that, like, for instance, in Norway, they have this principle in government that they need to reuse any information they have about you as a citizen in all different entities throughout, and that's the sort of principle they're designing all the new services about, and that's quite unique, and it makes it much easier to be a citizen, and do the right thing.
Just as a really simple example from this was last year. So after going through a divorce and, 50-50 with the kids, and then in Norway, you get this child support. And when you're alone with 2 kids, you can get an increased amount, but then you also get a bigger deduction because you are alone with 2 children. So, this assumption that you have higher costs gives you a tax deduction. So I got my tax report, and I realized that I was going to get, hit on the back of my head, as we say. I had to pay because I had paid too little tax. And then a few weeks later, a letter dropped into my DigiPost, digital mail system that we have in Norway as well. And it says, look, we've made some suggestions to changing your taxes because we see that you have a decision here from this office saying that you are alone with 2 kids, and so you should actually have a deduction. So I ended up, not having to pay, or I had to pay just very little compared to what I would have had to pay. And they discovered this. I didn't even see it myself, but they found out and they noticed me. And then they said, do you approve of the changes we've made? And I was like, yes, of course I am. But I was really surprised when that happened. And then in other areas, they were still, lagging. But little by little and step by step, I think the whole public experience of being a citizen in Norway is improving a lot. And I think other countries would be, amazed by some of the things that are happening.
Yeah.
Shall we take one last question as we are rounding the hour?
We are.
And this is actually one of my favorite questions. So were you the one if you was the one, Jannecke, trying to secure funding for customer-centric improvement initiatives, what is the first thing that you would do?
So I would definitely try to understand that the organizational model or the business model and the strategy, and talk, of course, to the stakeholders and identify areas where you can make an impact so you can showcase that. So that's really where I would want to start. It's important to understand, what's top of mind, of course, of the stakeholders, but also, where you can make a difference. And you do that by understanding sort of both what you want to accomplish, but also, finding areas where you really do not, meet customers' needs or expectations are far off in order to succeed on that. And my experience is that there's a lot of knowledge within the organization. So even if I'm probably one of those always talking about customer centricity, that doesn't mean you need to go out and ask the customers, because the insight is usually there. So it's all about, putting these pieces together, find an area where you really can make a difference, and make sure you can showcase that as soon as possible.
Yeah. Great tip.
Talk to customer service is sort of my as well, because like you say, I think we sometimes underestimate how well employees know their own companies and the company's own challenges.
Yeah.
It's
fine. It's asking, as someone said, ask 10 people what the key challenges are in this area. And that's probably a good starting point for actually, seeing if there's something you can do about it. So,
and it also engages the employees as well, as including them and having their opinion. So then we're back to the whole CX discussion. It would be great. So we should do a study on that at some point.
Yeah. I'm very interested in hearing more about Showcase. No, I'm just saying, if anyone, please reach out if you have your perfect showcase. I have lots of people that want to learn more about that. Yeah.
You were saying, Jana?
Yes, I was going to say, now I want to take this point to say a huge thank you to you, Jannecke, for joining us today on this podcast. This has been one of these episodes that it's just been so relaxed and so enriching. I'm getting confused by the clapping in the background.
I was like, wow. Yeah. No, my pleasure. This is really a topic on my heart. So I really enjoy talking to you guys. And I love the work you're doing with this CXPod. So all the best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you,
I mean, we
Jannecke.
feel very privileged to both, knowing you and also be working with you actually in the Norwegian CX network, which is, like our common hobby, where we try to make things happen in the Norwegian sort of sphere of CX, but also, for being on the pod once again for the second time, and for taking on our 13 question challenge.
It's been great fun.
And if you want to hear more from Jannecke, obviously you could look up the episode that's going to be sound only, but still there's another episode on the CXPod from previously with Jannecke. And if anybody has this study that we've been talking about, the EXCX and the connection between those, or if they just want to reach out to, I don't know, pick your brain or, discuss ideas, where do they reach you?
So they can reach me on LinkedIn, of course, and also on customerc.no, which is the website of my company.
It's Customer C in one word, right?
Yeah, customerc.no in one word.
Mm-hmm. We're also going to make sure
to please reach out. I love this topic and would love to talk.
Great. We're going to round up. We are going to make sure to leave a link to your LinkedIn profile and a link to your website in the episode, or the show notes, as Joanna likes to call them.
Lovely.
Thank you so much once again. And to everyone listening or watching even, this is the CXPod. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the CXPod. If you want to reach us, you can always find us on LinkedIn, and please remember to follow us on Spotify and leave a review of what you think.